Hi, my name is Mike Corcoran. I'm a saddler, saddle maker, and I'm going to go through on how to evaluate your saddle fit and to help you kind of look at your saddle on your horse so that you can tell how it's fitting or not fitting. And so that's what we'll do today. So usually what I like to do is I look at the horse's conformation stuff, and I'll go ahead and put a saddle on without a pad. Where a Western saddle, you always use a pad or blanket to ride with. English saddles, you can ride without pads. So, but I want to look at tree width and see what's going on. So on this horse, good boy. So making sure, one of the things too, because the saddle's covered up, the tree is covered up. So the center of your front concho here, that screw is in the wood of the tree. So the front edge of that tree is going to be right about the front edge of this concho. So that'll give you a reference point of knowing where the tree fits, because you don't want the tree on the scapula. So I check with my hand here, so where I can feel that there. So this is the proper placement and where I want to put this saddle. So the first thing I notice on this horse is that when you step back, this saddle runs downhill into this horse, which means it's going to start blocking the shoulder and put pressure on the withers. Okay, so what I'll do then is see what's going on there. I'll usually take my hand and I'll come up underneath and I pick this saddle up and I look for my balance part here. Okay, so my picture I'm looking at is I want this to look level. So I look to see how much lift I need in order to make this saddle fit this horse correctly. That's the thing I'm after there. And on this horse, you see where this tree is just too wide for this horse. There's a lot of gap in here, too much. All right, and I want the angle of that tree to fit the angle of this wither. The other thing to do, and you'll notice that more when we girth it up, is that when you see a horse go along and you see that saddle bouncing in the back, it's usually always too wide in front. So that's what happens there. And then they start to get cinchy because then this moves too much. So when the saddle moves around, bounces there, locks up the back, cinch moves too much, then they start to get cinchy and sore. So when you start coming to them to saddle up, the ears get laid back, and then you end up having problems. So, all right, so now what I'll do now is put just my regular pad on to show you what that fit looks like, and then I'll end up adding another blanket to it to help the fit of this saddle. So that way I want to show you what the two different fits look like. Okay, now I have my felt pad underneath. Now, I'm one of those, I like 100% wool felt because it absorbs more shock, cooler in the summer, warmer in the winter, so you get a much better airflow. And so that's my favorite. I like a felt pad that's got a contour because you always want to tuck that pad up into the gullet of there, so that way you're not on the spinous processes and you're not creating pressure. So when you look at this now, I don't have this saddle girthed up, so you look at it first, you go, wow, okay, well that doesn't look too bad, so that looks pretty good. So let's take and snug the girth up, because that's kind of your true test on your fit. And you got to remember too, I still don't have a rider setting in this. See, so that changes a lot. And the other thing is, you got to remember is where your rig is whether it's in this case, this saddle is at a 15/16, where a full double is more forward, a 7/8 is more back here. But you got to remember, when you start to tighten this girth, is that starts to pull that saddle down into that horse. Okay, so now, and I'm not going to over tighten this with him, just kind of snug it up some there. But the other being is, and he's standing pretty soft square for me, but you can see we're on pretty nice level ground here, but you can already see how the angle of the saddle wants to go down towards him. And then you see how now we got a gap back here already. Now, number one, I don't mind a little bit of gap because you don't want a saddle sitting all the way down on this horse and then get in it and put more pressure. So, but this is getting a little too much here, and the problem is you're going to end up doing too much. So what happens is you're going from front to back, front to back, front to back. Okay, so it has to be like a pair of shoes. You lace them up, and you run in a shoe that's laced up, not unlaced. So the horse wears it. We only sit in it. All right, and so that's what I'm after there. So if you can kind of see where I'm at in my fit right there. So now what we'll do is I'm going to add a double weave Navajo to see how much I change the fit of this horse. And remember, it takes less to pick up the front of a saddle than the back of a saddle. And you always want to pick the front up. The worst of your two evils is pommel pressure. So I'd rather be at a little cantle low than ever be low in the front. Okay? So now we'll put our double weave on. Okay, you see now that I've added my double weave blanket, and I put, in this case, at the moment, I put it under my pad because your double weave blankets are easier to clean than your felt pads are. Now, when I'm showing, then I put my colorful blanket on top during my show part. But when I'm schooling at home, and this is what I've got to do, then I use my blanket underneath. All right, so that's, so just so people know that you can change that. And your saddle really fits well, you're using your 1-inch wool felt pad, but you want to put color on top, it doesn't hurt anything during your show time. Put your Navajo on top of your felt pad to show with. So you're not changing your fit that much. But now, if you notice that I've added the double weave and I've cinched him down, and so how much more balanced this looks. So you should be able to see the levelness. And if you look at the video earlier, you saw how the rig angled this direction, and now the angle of my rig is this direction. So see, I am more straight up and down there. And then when you talk about cinches and stuff, you look at the rib cage, because the rib cage moves. All right. So as a horse is moving, the rib cage moves. So if you try to cinch a horse too far back, the rib cage, the muscling is always going to push that forward. And what you do is you find the channel in your horse's body right there, and that's his area. That is his spot. And so once your saddle is quiet, then your cinch is quiet. And then you don't have cinch issues. Now, I don't like nylon. Nylon doesn't give. And I'm not a synthetic girth fan. But, you know, but there again, because there's no stretch in those. So the thing about it is, as long as you have leather latigos and you want to use your nylon cinch or your thing like that, then that's fine. You know, so those are the main things. But make sure you have your latigos that have give so that the horse can breathe. So those are the things I want. Then you see how the angle of your stirrup leather, your fender hangs straighter, and then you see the balance of this. So where I'm sitting here is more level there. So those are the things I'm after when I fit this horse. When you have a saddle that's a little too wide and you use this, just remember it's a Band-Aid, and you don't wear Band-Aids forever. So it'll help you to get to the time you can afford or find one that has a correct tree fit and works for you. Those are the things you want. Okay, so we're back, and what I wanted to show is this is a saddle that was made for this horse. The tree was fitted to this horse, and so he got his new custom fitted, custom made saddle. And so I just wanted to use this to show you what the proper fit looks like. And you can see how the balance is on this, where I'm at there. So here, and if I take and I push really hard on that horn, you're not seeing any movement in this saddle. All right. And then the other thing, when I was doing that, you didn't see a reaction from him. And so that's kind of the picture. What I want to leave with people is to kind of really step back and look at their tack and look at their saddle fit. And what's always good too is if you have a friend that would get in your saddle and ride your horse so that you can see your horse go in your saddle to see what it looks like. Because we get an idea kind of what it feels like, but we ought to take time to actually see our horse with somebody else in the tack. And that's a good learning thing. So it constantly teaches you what you're looking at and what your fit looks like. But as soon as you get a really good fit on these horses, your performance level just goes up, and the muscles change. The top line changes because you got to remember the top line is always changing, whether it's correct or incorrect. It's always going to change. Muscles don't lie, so they're either right or they're wrong. So fit is so very important for these horses, and they just last longer that way. So that's what I'm after when I'm teaching. Somebody else gets in my saddle, and I just kind of can look at it. Do I notice the saddle dropping in the front? Do I notice when they're riding the back of it's popping up? You know, and even though I have a back cinch on this horse, and I was just lifting it for this video, I don't have it that tight. You should not have your back cinch try to hold your saddle down. That's not what that's for. In a roping situation, that's a different deal. But I'm looking at is that a friend of mine's on my horse. Do they look balanced sitting there? Are they over their leg? Does that picture look correct in the fit? And two, I look at how my horse moves. So does he have a free move about him, or does he feel restricted? Does he go choppy in the front? That kind of thing. So those are the things you want to look at when you're watching somebody else ride your horse. And for me, it's a great lesson, you know, because I like when I put my wife on my horse and stuff. You know, she rides him better than me. Anyway, but it lets me look at the whole picture of what's going on.